My name is Amara. For most of my childhood, I believed my mother was the strongest woman in the world. She never went to university. She never owned a big business. She never drove an expensive car. But somehow, she always found a way to put food on our table. She was the kind of woman who could smile when there was nothing to smile about. The kind of woman who would tell her children, "Don't worry, tomorrow will be better," even when she had no idea how tomorrow would survive. I was 12 years old when I first realized that my mother was hiding something from me. And years later, when I finally discovered the truth, I cried for an entire night. Not because she had lied to me, but because I finally understood how much she had sacrificed just to give me a future. We lived in a small town in eastern Nigeria. Our house was old. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked whenever it rained, and during the rainy season, my mother would place buckets everywhere to collect the water dripping from the ceiling. My younger sister, Chiamaka, and I shared one small room. My mother slept in the sitting room. She always said she preferred it there. I didn't know that she slept on the old sofa because she wanted us to have the only proper mattress in the house. My father had died when I was 7. He had been a mechanic. One afternoon, he went to work and never came home. A truck had hit his motorcycle on the way back from the workshop. His death destroyed my mother, but she didn't have time to grieve. She had 2 children to raise. So the next morning, she got up, wiped her tears, and went to the market. She started selling food. Every morning before sunrise, she would leave the house carrying a large basin filled with cooked rice, beans, fried plantain, and stew. Sometimes she returned with almost nothing. Other days, she made enough money to buy food for the next morning. But no matter how difficult things became, she never allowed us to sleep hungry. I was a very good student. My teachers always told my mother that I had a bright future. One day, my mathematics teacher called her aside. "Madam," he said, "your daughter is very intelligent. Don't let poverty stop her." My mother smiled. "I won't." That evening, she came home unusually quiet. I asked her what was wrong. "Nothing," she said, but I noticed her wiping her eyes. I didn't understand. A few weeks later, I was offered admission into one of the best secondary schools in our area. I was so happy that I ran home with the admission letter. "Mummy." She looked at the paper, then she looked at me. Then she smiled. "You got it?" Yes, I expected her to jump for joy. Instead, she hugged me tightly, and I felt something wet fall onto my shoulder. She was crying. "Mummy, why are you crying?" She quickly wiped her face. "These are tears of happiness." I believed her. I didn't know she had just discovered that the school fees were more than everything she had saved in 6 months. The following morning, my mother went to the market. She returned that evening without her wedding ring. I noticed immediately. "Mummy, where is your ring?" She looked at her hand. "Oh." She smiled. "I removed it because it was making my finger uncomfortable." I believed her. Years later, I learned that she had sold it to pay my school fees. Secondary school was difficult. There were days when other students brought food from home while I sat quietly with nothing. Sometimes my mother couldn't afford my transport fare. I would walk several kilometers to school, but I never told her. I knew she was already doing everything she could. One evening, I came home and found her sitting alone in the dark. There was no food on the table. "Mummy, have you eaten?" She smiled. "Yes." "What did you eat, rice?" I looked around. There was no rice. I knew she was lying. That night, I went to bed hungry, but I heard my mother crying in the sitting room. I wanted to get up. I wanted to ask her what was wrong, but I was afraid. So I stayed in bed and pretended to sleep. Years passed. I finished secondary school with excellent results. Then came the biggest challenge: university. I had always dreamed of becoming a doctor. But when I told my mother, she became silent. "Medicine?" "Yes, Mummy." She nodded slowly. "Then you will become a doctor." I smiled. "How will we pay for it?" She looked at me. "I will find a way." Those words became her promise, and somehow she kept it. My first year at university was difficult. My mother borrowed money. She sold her cooking equipment. She stopped buying new clothes. Sometimes she would tell me she had sent my allowance when she hadn't. I didn't know she was borrowing from neighbors just to make sure I had money. Then, during my second year, something terrible happened. My mother became sick. She told me it was malaria, but she refused to go to the hospital. "I'll be fine," she said. I begged her. She refused. "You need your school fees." I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was simply being stubborn. Then one evening, my younger sister called me. Amara. Her voice was shaking. Mummy collapsed. I immediately traveled home. When I arrived, my mother was lying on the bed. She looked much thinner. I held her hand. "Mummy, what is wrong with you?" She smiled. "Nothing. You're sick. I'm just tired." We took her to the hospital. The doctor examined her. Then he asked to speak with me privately. My heart sank. "Your mother has been sick for a long time." "How long?" "Several months." I looked at my mother. She looked away. The doctor continued. "She needs treatment, and it won't be cheap." I felt the world collapse around me. "How much?" He told me. I couldn't breathe. We had no money. That night, I sat beside my mother's bed. "Mummy, why didn't you tell me?" She didn't answer. "Why?" She finally looked at me. "Because you were studying. You could have died." She smiled weakly. "But you were becoming a doctor." I started crying. "I don't care about becoming a doctor if I lose you." She reached for my hand. "Don't say that." Then she whispered something I will never forget. "Promise me you won't give up." I promised. The next morning, I went to my university and explained everything. Some lecturers contributed money. My classmates contributed. A women's group in my mother's town also helped. But the money was still not enough. Then, one afternoon, I found an envelope under my mother's mattress. Inside were receipts, school fees, hostel fees, textbooks, transport, everything she had paid for me. But there was something else. A pawn shop receipt. I stared at it. My mother's necklace, her sewing machine, her wedding ring, her small refrigerator, even the piece of land my father had left behind. She had sold almost everything, just to keep me in school. I sat on the floor and cried. For the first time, I understood. Every time I complained that my shoes were old, she had gone without food. Every time I asked for school books, she had sold something. Every time I thought she was simply managing, she was actually sacrificing her life for mine. My mother eventually received treatment. It took months. But she survived. I returned to university. I worked harder than ever. I studied during the day and worked part-time at night. 4 years later, I graduated. I remember walking across the stage in my graduation gown. My mother was sitting in the audience. She was wearing an old dress. The same dress she had worn at my secondary school graduation years earlier. When I received my certificate, I looked at her. She was crying. I walked straight to her. I knelt down. "Mummy." She pulled me into her arms. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said. "We did it." Years later, I became a doctor. My first salary was more money than my mother had ever earned in several years. I went home. I found her sitting outside our old house. I handed her an envelope. "What is this?" "Your retirement." She laughed. "Retirement from what?" "From suffering." She opened the envelope. Inside was enough money to start a small business and repair the house. She looked at me. Then she started crying. "Mummy," I said, "why are you crying?" She held my face in her hands. "Because your father would have been proud of you." I cried too. A few months later, I took her to a jewelry store. I told her to choose anything she wanted. She picked a simple gold ring. I bought it. When we got home, I put it on her finger. She stared at it for a long time. Then she smiled. "You know," she said, "I once had a ring just like this." "I know." She looked at me. "You knew?" I found the receipt. She became quiet. I held her hand. "Mummy, I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not knowing what you were going through." She shook her head. You were a child. Then she smiled. That was my job, to carry the burden so you wouldn't have to. Today, whenever I see a mother struggling to provide for her children, I remember my own mother. People often see the success of a child. They see the graduation. They see the certificate. They see the career. They see the beautiful life. But sometimes they don't see the mother who went hungry. They don't see the father who worked until his hands became rough. They don't see the parent who sold something precious so their child could stay in school. They don't see the sacrifices made in silence. My mother taught me that love is not always loud. Sometimes love looks like an empty plate. Sometimes love looks like an old dress worn for the 10th time. Sometimes love looks like a mother saying, "I've already eaten," when she hasn't. And sometimes love is a woman selling the last valuable thing she owns because she believes her child's future is worth more than everything she possesses. Today, whenever someone asks me how I became successful, I never say it was because I was intelligent. I say, someone loved me enough to sacrifice everything, and that someone was my mother. So if your mother is still alive, call her. If your father is still alive, appreciate him. Don't wait until you lose them before you realize what they sacrificed for you. Because one day, you may finally understand their sacrifices. But by then, you may no longer have the chance to say, thank you. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. What is the biggest sacrifice your parents have ever made for you? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional African stories.